7. Waking Nightmare. Emilia shook off the webs of tangled dreams and pulled in a long, deep breath. Exhaustion and dread sat wedged in her chest, unmoving. He's not gone. She slid her hand across the bed to find Knox. Even half asleep, he would wrap her in his arms and dispel the sadness that gripped her. Her hand found empty space, and her eyes sprung open. "Knox!" "Shh," her voice said next to her, and a wet cloth wiped at her forehead. "You're safe." "Mother?" Suspended disbelief crashed down with force. "It wasn't a nightmare," she whispered. "No, sweet," her mother said softly. Tears stung Emilia's eyes, but she found her soul already numb and spent as she accepted a glass handed to her. "Drink up." "How long has it been?" she croaked, her voice rough from disuse. 2 days. We thought you were going to leave us too. I'm glad you chose to stay." Breath left her chest as if it were escaping the cracks of a broken shell. Death had not only robbed her of those she loved most, but had also spurned her the opportunity to join them. The cruel truth made her heart stutter. "Taryn is here. Would you like to see him?" Maven asked softly. A foreign sense of eagerness filled her for a brief moment, a craving for the familiar. She nodded, and a moment later Taryn's large frame filled the doorway. His unusually broad smile and bright eyes were lost under haggard features. "You're awake," he breathed with tangible relief, and crossed the room in a couple of his large strides. He dropped next to the bed and wrapped her in a gentle hug. The numbness thawed within his arms, and new tears sprang forward. Taryn held her for a long moment before she sucked in a clearing breath and pulled back, sniffing. Taryn pushed up from his knees and moved to sit on the end of the bed, a hand resting comfortingly at her ankle. "Do you think he suffocated?" she voiced the tormenting thought. He raked a hand through his hair, throat bobbing as he swallowed. "It was too fast. He would have—" He stared with sightless eyes, clearly reliving the moment, and Emilia found herself glad she hadn't seen the crash firsthand. A rush of guilt followed the selfish thought. "Without the sky's strength, it would have been quick." His voice turned husky. "He shouldn't have been out there with me." "Taryn, don't." Emilia reached for his hand. He obliged, gripping it tightly. "He should have stayed with you and the others." "Knox wouldn't have sat on the sidelines with the cluster in danger. Ever." Taryn tried to protest, but she cut him off again. "This is not on you. The orders should have never taken his strength." Her voice cracked. "If he knew he was enough, that I didn't need anything other than him, he wouldn't have given in to their obscene requirements." Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Taryn's expression turned stern as he met her gaze with amber eyes blazing. "Don't you dare. Knox wanted a family too. You didn't pull him from the order. He left, wholeheartedly." A shadow of a smile curved his mouth. "He would never let you get away with thinking anything else." Emilia sniffled, her voice small. "I can't wrap my head around it. He's gone. Our child, our future, gone. What am I going to do?" "I don't know, Em." He squeezed her hand reassuringly. "But you won't be alone." Her throat cut off the words of thanks trying to rise, and instead she nodded. The promise of Taryn's presence was a warm blanket staving off the harsh bite of reality. A light knock sounded at the door, and Maven poked her head in. "There's a messenger here to see you, Taryn." He flashed an apologetic look at her and pushed himself up from the bed. "Get some rest. I'll be back later today." He left, and her mother eyed her with the critical eye of a healer. "Do you feel up for some tea?" Emilia pushed her legs to the edge of the bed. Seeing her intention, her mother quickly came to her side and offered support as they moved out into the main room. She purposefully avoided the rocking chair and instead moved to the low-backed sofa. "Wouldn't you be more comfortable?" "No." Her tone was harsh, cutting off any further discussion. Maven nodded affably, giving rise to a sudden surge of guilt. "I'm sorry, Mother. I can't—" Her mother patted her arm. "No need to justify. Sit wherever you are most comfortable. Do you want me to have the chair removed?" Emilia sat carefully in the soft cushions. "No, thank you." Her mother bustled around the kitchen and prepared her tea and a light meal before returning to sit with her. Emilia picked at the food, one of her favorites from childhood, but her appetite refused to make an appearance. Her mother grabbed her familiar bag of bright fibers and sat in an armchair across from the couch, putting the needles to work. "How's Father?" Emilia asked, desperate to keep her mind occupied. "He's busy. They have him fabricating the parts for one of the bolt throwers you designed. I designed those ages ago when those Deccan were in the south. They'll be useless against those larger Earthbound." Maven shrugged. "He's doing what the Council tells him to." Emilia sniffed. "The only thing more useless than the Order is the Ricken Council." Her mother raised a fine eyebrow at the statement, but said nothing. The needles resumed their clacking. "Do you have any other ideas?" Maven asked innocently. She rolled her eyes at her mother's attempt to distract her, but the question did its work and took hold in her mind. What could kill something made of moving earth? Her mind drifted to the rolled-up schematics in the corner that she had started with Taryn and Knox a few days ago. All Earthbound were sensitive to vibrations and could detect and isolate the most minute disturbances on the surface. In theory, her probes could work. But is it possible on such a large scale? She hadn't accounted for the scope of a creature larger than their biggest buildings. "Idea?" her mother asked. "I might," she admitted. "Taryn and I talked about probes that might deter Earthbound." "Sounds promising." Her mind instantly jumped to calculations. But how to power such a device? "It's a long way off from promising, but maybe with time it could be." Maven stepped into the bedroom, only to re-emerge a moment later carrying Emilia's notebook and a pen. "Thanks," she said with a weak smile. Maven pulled out a small flask of oil scented with lavender, rubbed it between her hands, and worked it through Emilia's hair with her fingers before picking up a wide-toothed comb. Emilia relaxed under her mother's touch, gentle in its familiarity. She glanced down at the paper in her lap. Her mother had often directed her to work on a problem when she felt troubled as a child. The transparent ploy had always worked. Engineering tech allowed for absolutes, when life rarely did. Her mother finished with her hair and left her to her numbers. Emilia sketched out a few ideas for emitter probes before her thoughts turned to the Earth. "He's still out there, trapped." Emilia stood as if she could escape from the emotion filling her and returned to her room. She tossed the notebook on the bed and looked around peevishly. The pile of communication equipment she had already been twice over caught her eye. Suddenly inspired, she started carting it back out to the kitchen table. Her mother stepped in. "What's all of that? Let me carry it." Emilia reluctantly let her mother take the box from her arms, following her to the kitchen table. "Communication equipment. The diagnostics are all clean. I'm going to run some encryptions and see if I can find a usable line. We're going to need supplies. If I can get through to Dayton, we might not need to tear apart working infrastructure." Her mother smiled. "If anyone can solve it, you can." Maven's expression turned apologetic. "I need to check on the others injured. Will you be okay on your own for a bit? I'll send Lynn up here in my place." Emilia glanced up, half distracted by the wires around her. "Of course." Maven watched her a second longer. "You're sure?" "I'll be fine." Her mother hummed a response she half heard. The sound of the door clicking shut didn't register until after she finished rebuilding the circuit she had picked up. Emilia retreated into the silence, only interrupted by the occasional pop from the hearth. Once she was sure the system was properly assembled, she powered it up and keyed a sequence into the control pad. Static crackled through the speaker much too cheerily. She scanned the open frequencies and sent out test messages. Nothing bounced back. The diagnostics continued to look clean. The system was functioning as it should, yet Rickon remained cut off. She pursed her lips in thought. The Order sometimes used encrypted frequencies to communicate with the overseers spread through the outer reaches. Frequencies, strictly speaking, that she shouldn't know about, but Nox had never bothered to hide them from her, and she'd memorized as many as she could. A stab of pain pinched her lungs at the thought of him. Emilia sucked in a long breath and started scanning, shifting the modulations by fractional increments. While not authorized, Emilia knew Dedan would likely be watching official encryptions as a matter of personal pride. She didn't care if it wasn't legal. If the two of them could find a workaround past this malfunction, all the better for the Reaches. A telltale tone sounded through the speaker. Her eyes widened in surprise. They hadn't been able to register any incoming frequencies for over a week. She put the tone through the encryption, and it began beeping in rapid sequence. Another code. She frowned. This was not one she recognized. Double coding was excessive even for the Order. Footsteps sounded along the wooden balcony outside. Emilia instinctively flipped the channel back to static. Lynn, her mother's assistant, entered a moment later, carrying a basket full of produce and bread. "Emilia, good to see you up," the young woman said as she sat the basket on the counter and began unloading the items. "Would you like some tea? That can help with the cramping." Emilia gave her a tight smile, ignoring the constant ache in her belly and the deeper pain it echoed. "I'm fine, thank you. I think I'll go lay down for a bit." Lynn gave her an encouraging smile. "Good idea." She gathered her notepad and cleared the control panel before retreating to her room. The encoded message tore at her. How is a singular frequency getting through while the rest of the region remains in the dark? Never mind that she had been attempting the very same thing. Buried as it had been, on an obscure channel and under layers of encryption, it spoke of something other than a natural blackout or failure. Someone on the outside knew the Reaches were in trouble and was secretly communicating. Emilia's gut churned uncomfortably. Everyone saw the Order through the blue of the sky, holy and infallible. Yet the fact this message contained one of the Order's encryptions suggested the communication was linked in some way to the capital. Unless there were others like herself and Dedan who were capable of hacking the system and were using it for their own ends. Emilia dismissed the thought. Who other than the Order would stoop to such backhanded dealings? She waited for Lynn to leave before returning to the kitchen. The healer had left a plate of food on the table and a pot of tea warmed under a niche cozy. Ignoring the growl of her stomach, Emilia flicked the communication equipment back on. Static fuzzed in her ears, the transmission over. A rush of emotion squeezed her chest, and she slammed her palm onto the table, letting frustration burn. I missed it. The Order had stolen much through the years. Nox had only ever half belonged to her, always bound to the sky first, and when he could have been hers alone, she'd lost him entirely. If they were now manipulating the Reaches, she would bring it to light.